The Steamdeck OLED is maybe the coolest PC gaming thing that I had yet to try, and I'm really glad I picked one up. This is Cyberpunk running completely maxed out on my 4090 PC back at home, but it's being streamed here to the Steam Deck, and I'm blown away by how well this works. I've been using the Steam Deck for about a week now, and man, I've got some thoughts. First impressions unboxing this thing and getting it all set up, it's a lot bigger than I was expecting. Maybe because my last handheld gaming console was a PlayStation Portable when I was like 11, but yeah, I love the size of it, especially the screen. It's also lighter than I was expecting, 640 grams, which is more than light enough to really just kick back with. There are also a lot of buttons. Just like a normal controller, you've got 2 analog joysticks, a directional pad, your action keys, and then a bumper and trigger on the back of each side. But then you've also got 2 haptic trackpads and 4 more buttons on the grips, which you can assign to whatever you like. The setup was also brutally easy. Just connect your Wi-Fi, run the update, log into Steam, and download some games. The first thing I noticed powering this thing on was the screen. It looks amazing. I mean, it's an OLED, you expect it to be good, but I mean, man, I've seen some of the best gaming OLEDs out there, and they do not look this good. The pixel density here is extremely high, and this thing gets insanely bright. I've yet to use it at max brightness. At the same time, it's your premium OLED experience. The colors look absolutely phenomenal, so vibrant, so punchy. The contrast is perfect, you get those true inky blacks for those dark games, and it also has a 90 Hz refresh rate as well. 90 Hz doesn't sound like a whole lot, but for the types of games that you're going to be playing on this, and for the smaller screen size, which naturally smaller screen sizes just do feel faster and more responsive anyway, 90 Hz, at least for me, is perfectly fine. SteamOS, by the way, is amazing. It's so brutally simple, so minimal and easy to use. It is so frictionless to get up and running and start playing games. The sleep and waking is so fast on this thing. It feels a lot like a console in that regard, but not dumbed down like a console. I mean, if you want to start tinkering with stuff as well, with a few clicks, you can start capping the refresh rate, manually locking the GPU clock, adjusting the TDP of the chip as well. I've seen people go really deep as well with custom BIOSes for undervolting and overclocking and stuff like that. I've yet to tinker with any of that stuff, but it is possible to do that stuff as well. The AMD architecture running this as well is the same as what you'll find on an Xbox Series X or like a PS5, for example. It's just cut down a significant amount to run in this handheld form factor with a tiny fan and a battery. The entire chip is apparently capped at just 15 watts, and supposedly that should land you between 3 and 12 hours of gaming, depending on what you're playing. So let's find out. If there's something I want to make really clear about the Steam Deck OLED, it's that this is not a powerful gaming device by any means, at least by itself. The games that you're going to be loading up on this thing need to be really well optimized, or they need to be like 2D indie games. So games like Doom Eternal, for example, which is extremely well optimized, that game runs really nicely on the Steam Deck OLED. With minimal settings, I can fully saturate that 90 Hz screen and get a super smooth experience. And then there's games like No Man's Sky, 55, 60 FPS there, again with really minimal settings. You can tell because the terrain is basically just like one mesh with very minimal textures, but you can still get engaged in the story and the game runs quite well. And then Forza Horizon, another really well optimized game. I set a cap here of 72 Hz and I was hitting that most of the time. All those settings here, game looks okay, a little bit shimmery at times, but I guess when you realize what you're playing it on, it's actually very impressive. The thing is though, most of the time when I'm using this, I'm just at home. Instead of hopping into bed and picking up my phone, I'm picking this up instead. And that also means that I can just stream off my PC. By using Steam's remote play feature, not only does that mean that I don't have to have the game physically installed here on the Steam Deck, but it also means the performance that this opens up is quite honestly mental. I've been running Cyberpunk oversampled at 2560 by 1600, 90 FPS locked at max settings with a bit of DLSS. It's being rendered on my 4090 PC at home and being sent to the Steam Deck here at my studio. The game looks unbelievable and plays even more insane. This is literally the performance of an enthusiast PC in the palm of my hands. You would think that the compression artifacts or the input lag would kill the experience here, but I've been playing like this for a few days now, and there is nothing like that at all. Granted, I do have pretty good connection speeds here at the studio and back at home, but my internet is nothing out of the ordinary, and yeah, I've yet to see any super noticeable compression or artifacting at all. This also means that the battery life is absolutely mental, since we're not loading up the CPU or GPU. I haven't done any timed tests yet, but man, it has to be at least close to 8 hours. There's also no fan noise or heat coming out of the Steam Deck at all. Now, on the note of input lag, if you're playing on the same network as the PC that you're remote playing from, it's very minimal, especially if you're running games at 90 Hz. But all of the footage that you're seeing here is me playing on a separate network and also having the streaming bandwidth set to max, which should be the worst case for latency. And still, it is very playable. Now, I don't want to take anything away from the base performance of the Steam Deck, because this thing is still pretty impressive. The GPU in here barely pulls 10 watts at full load, so I mean, to me, it's remarkable that games even launch on this thing. For that reason though, it can't really run something like Cyberpunk at a level where I'd honestly want to sit down and play through it. Using the optimized Steam Deck preset and even dropping some of the settings, I'm still only getting like 30 to 45 FPS, and the game to me looks pretty bad. This kind of experience, it's enough to give me like motion sickness and fatigue after just a few minutes. Now, of course, when I first got the Steam Deck, I ran everything natively, and the performance in most games is not great, but you kind of put up with it because the novelty and enjoyment of playing on the Steam Deck, it just easily makes up for it. But then I tried the remote play, and it completely blew my mind. One game which I was really looking forward to running on the Steam Deck was Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Fun little fighting game which can get a bit sweaty if you're queuing ranked, but I still really enjoy it. Like many fighting games, it runs at 60 frames per second locked, and if you dip below that, the game will literally lag and the combat will slow down. It can get very messy. And that's basically the experience on the Steam Deck. I've tried lowering the render resolution as well, but I'm still mostly floating around 45, 50 FPS. The game logic actually runs noticeably slower at this frame rate, and any form of online just doesn't seem to work. Streaming this game from my PC though, I mean, it's flawless. I can run completely maxed out at 60 FPS locked, no frame dips, full visual effects, and the input lag feels fine. The timing for counters and blocks in this game has to be pretty tight. Again, you'd think streaming it would make it unplayable, but it actually felt pretty close to my normal online latency. This also makes the Steam Deck extremely future-proof because honestly, remote play is how I plan to use it. Tapping into my overkill PC in another room, loading up max graphics, oversampled resolution, 90 Hz, and when that thing gets upgraded, so does this. And it's funny, I didn't even plan on using this feature when I bought the Steam Deck. None of the big reviews even mentioned it. It's like it's so irrelevant, it doesn't even matter. At the very least, I expected there to be problems with it, but that hasn't been my experience at all. And I do get the argument, you know, like if you're at home playing on the Steam Deck, why don't you just go in the other room to where the PC is and play at that setup? There are actually a lot of reasons. Some games are just more comfortable on a Steam Deck. It's a little bit more social as well. You don't have to be locked in your room all the time. At the very least, maybe you just want a break from the desk that you've been sitting at, perhaps working all day, me for example, or maybe it's just really late at the end of the day. You want to hang out in bed and play some games, but with the power of your PC. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with this thing lately. It feels like the ultimate extension or add-on for my PC.